Welcome, everybody. This is the July 20th, 2022 Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission meeting for the City of Thousand Oaks. We're going to go ahead and get started now, so if everybody will stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well done. Ms. Vasquez, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ferris,
Here.
Commissioner Hayek,
Here.
Vice Chair Pletcher,
Here.
Chair Emel,
Here.
Commissioner Lemo is absent.
All right, at this time, I would ask Ms. Vasquez, can you also please make the public comments announcement for us?
This is the time and place for public comments. Registration for public comments is available for those wishing to address the Traffic Commission regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for specific agenda items shall be called and heard during that specific item. All remarks should be addressed to the Traffic Commission as a whole. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the Traffic Commission unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city engineer for administrative follow-up. And currently we have no registered speakers in queue.
Okay, since we have no speakers tonight, we'll go ahead and move forward to item number 5 on our agenda, which is the summary notes from our April 20th, 2022 meeting. Do any of the commissioners have any comments on the summary notes from our April meeting? Okay, not hearing any, we can move along to item number 6, which is our engineers' reports. Now, before we call on the on Engineering Assistant Bradley Ackert to present our first report, I would like to explain the flow of the meeting for those who are here with us tonight and for those who are watching on our streaming cast on the internet. After each report, the public is going to have an opportunity to speak prior to the traffic commissioners having an opportunity to comment and discuss that item. If we have speakers, the staff will share a list of registered speakers on the screen, and we'll start calling the speakers one by one. May we please have Assistant Engineer Bradley Ackert present the first report?
Thank you, Chairman Emel, and good evening. I am Bradley Ackert, and I work in the Traffic Division of Public Works. Today, I'm going to be providing the Commission and the public with an update to the traffic signal priority list. This list contains all the intersections that have met state warrants and shows the next intersection that may receive a traffic signal once it is budgeted for. I'm going to start out by providing an overview of the design and construction of a new signal. I will present the California state warrants in place that show the minimum traffic volumes required to permit the installation of a new signal. And lastly, I will explain the procedure that your traffic division uses to figure out which intersections meet those warrants and what our most current list looks like. All right, so let's get into it. I wanted to provide you with a brief overview of some of the important... Oh, we're not on.
Yeah. It's there, but maybe TOTV has to load it. projected there, but yeah, typically the stream. One other option is this. Is that screen connected to this screen? Yeah. So we have to somehow move it over there, maybe. Yeah, but then.
That's fine. Get it started. Yeah.
All right, let's.
Thank you. There we go. Cool. All right. So I want to provide you with a brief overview of some important details of what it takes to build a new signal. There are currently 135 signals. The design cost for a new signal is between $50,000. The construction cost is between $400,000 and $450,000, and the maintenance for that signal is about $10,000 a year. I want to provide you with these numbers to show how expensive it is to install a new signal, and this cost needs to be budgeted for and approved by City Council. All right, so now that we have an idea of the cost of a new signal, let's transition into the state warrants that we use. There are 9 different warrants to see if a traffic signal can be installed at an intersection. We primarily focus on Warrant 1, which looks at 8-hour traffic volumes to determine if a signal is needed. There are 3 conditions under Warrant 1. There's Condition A, which only looks at the minimum volumes. There's Condition B, which provides the minimum volumes if there's no interruption of continuous traffic on the major street. And we also use the combination warrant for both A and B, which looks at the 80% of those minimum values. Another important warrant that we use is number 7, the crash experience. This one looks at the collision history over a 12-month period to see how many correctable accidents have occurred. One thing that I want to mention is that the satisfaction of a traffic signal warrant or warrants shall not itself require the installation of a traffic signal. So that means even if an intersection meets the warrant, it does not mean we must construct a traffic signal. It means the intersection is eligible, and there are other factors used, including engineering judgment and other constraints. Here we have Condition A. So once we figure out if the major street is considered rural or urban, we'll look at the number of approach lanes to determine those minimum volumes that we need. The number that you see in parentheses is the 80% of that minimum volume. So we would compare the minimum volume with the highest 8 hours that we receive from a traffic count. The next slide is Condition B, which looks at the interruption of continuous traffic. These minimum volumes are much higher for the major street and much lower for the minor street. This is the situation where you have so much traffic flowing on the major street that drivers never find a gap to enter traffic from the minor street. Same thing here, we compare the minimum volume with the highest 8 hours. Here's the combination warrant, where we look at conditions A and B to see if the major and minor streets met 80% of the required volumes. For this warrant, we also need an adequate trial of alternatives that could cause less delay. Well, all of these intersections that we are currently studying are stop sign controlled, so we know that the second part has already been met. This is Warrant 7, the crash experience warrant. This warrant looks at the number of correctable accidents within a 12-month period. Now, I keep saying correctable accidents, and you're probably wondering what the heck I'm talking about. So I'd like to explain that in a little further detail. These are 2 types of accidents that are considered correctable or avoidable if a traffic signal was installed. The 2 we have here are the approach turn and the right angle. So just to give you an idea, I wanted to show you some non-correctable examples, which would be a rear end, a hit object. Some other examples would be a side swipe or a DUI. My whole point is there are a lot more non-correctable accidents than correctable. Once we have the traffic counts for the intersection, we can compare those hourly volumes with the minimum volumes presented in the warrant. Depending on how those volumes stack up, points are awarded for meeting and exceeding those minimum volumes for each of the warrants. So here we have the maximum points that can be added being 105. But let's dive further into these numbers. For Condition A, 15 points can be earned by meeting the volumes for both the minor and major streets for 8 hours. If the average hourly volume exceeds 200% of the minimum, an additional 5 points can be earned for both the major and minor street. Same thing for Condition B. 15 points for meeting and exceeding the minimum volumes for all 8 hours, and 5 additional points if the average hourly volume exceeds 200%. This is the combination warrant, where 10 points can be earned if both the major and minor street meet 80% of the minimum volumes in both warrants A and B. So I just want to clarify that an intersection can earn 10 points by meeting 80% for one of the conditions, but in order to meet the warrant, it needs to meet 80% for both. Here's the points breakdown for the collision warrant. Points can be earned based on the total number of collectible collisions during a continuous 12-month period over the last 36 months. So the maximum is 25 points and 6 collisions. The other considerations that we look at are sight distance in accordance with the Federal Highway Administration standards. This is an all or nothing one, so 10 points or 0. So now that I've explained the procedure and confused everybody, I'd like to show you guys an example. These are the hourly traffic counts for the intersection of Avenida de los Arboles at Avenida de los Plantas. The column on the left is the combined total for the major street, which in this case is Avenida de los Arboles. We combine both directions for the major street and determine the highest 8 hours, which I have highlighted in green. Once we determine the highest 8 hours for the major street, we find the corresponding hours for the minor street. So we just move one column over, and those are the minor. I look back in condition A to determine that the streets are urban, and given the lane configuration, these are the volumes that we're going to be looking at. So when we compare these numbers, we're looking at the top. The major street greatly exceeds the 500 required per hour, and the minor street meets or exceeds for all 8 of those hours. This intersection earns 15 points for meeting, with an additional 5 for exceeding 200% on the major street. So same thing with condition B. We go back to it, we look to find the minimum volumes, and then compare it to the highest 8 hours. Now we're looking at the bottom. Both the major and the minor street meet for condition B, so it earns an additional 15 points. If we look at the average here for the minor street, it also earns 5 points for exceeding 200%. So before we move on to the next slide, I wanted to look at the 80% columns for both of the warrants. Since all 4 exceed 80% volume, they meet the combination warrant as well, which is down here. So 20 more points were added because the combination warrant was met, and then we move on to the collision history. There's been 1 correctable collision during a continuous 12-month period, so those 4 additional points were added. There is no issue with sight distance at the intersection, so 0 points for other considerations. This intersection meets all 3 warrants and earned a total of 64 points. Here's a list of the 10 intersections on the signal priority list, and this is also attachment number 2 of the staff report. The intersection of Avenida de los Arboles at Avenida de las Plantas is at the top of the list and should be the next intersection to receive a signal. One thing that I want to repeat is that all 10 of these intersections meet a warrant and all 10 qualify to receive a signal. There are a total of 23 intersections that are currently being monitored, so that means 13 intersections do not meet. We will continue to monitor the volumes and collisions because they change from year to year. This is why the positions on the list can change from year to year, which is why I mentioned there's no wrong decision on this priority list. We will perform counts and repeat this entire process in 2024. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Mr. Ackert, thank you very much for the thorough report. Does the commission have any questions of staff? Commissioner Ferris.
I guess one quick question. I think you were mentioning, is it the protocol, do you want us to ask staff of questions and then let it be open to the public for dealing, or do we asking the public to provide their, I thought you might have mentioned, I thought the public was.
Well, so first we'll open it up for questions of staff to the commission. If there are none, then we'll open the discussion up to the public. And then after those.
So we'll have questions and the public will come in then.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I'll ask a few if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I did have a question. If we go to attachment 2, the items you had mentioned that they all qualify for a warrant, and that's because and if I'm interpreting it right, that the 3 columns you have are warrant A, warrant B, warrant A and B. Each of those at least meet one of those to where that's the reason why they're on the list, and then and they might meet 2 or 3 of them. And then that's how the points help us to rank it. But it's because they do meet at least one of those warrants that you have listed there. Is that correct?
Thank you, Commissioner Ferris. That is absolutely correct. All of these have met at least 1, and then some you can see have met 2, and like the example that we went over, that one met all 3.
Yeah, perfect. So then thank you for that. And then, so the one question I have, I think, this might be question for a number of commissioners, but number 10, which is the Wendy and Kimber intersection, the double asterisks helped me understand that, one, this likely had been presented to the council upwards of 20 years ago, and they provided direction to, we understand that could probably qualify for a signal, but we have some speeding concerns with that. And then secondly, the data we have that indicates that it meets a warrant was from 2013. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you for that. So as far as the city council direction, the residents were concerned that if it was sitting on Greenball at that intersection and people were coming down the hill on Wendy, they'd be coming too fast. Where if we have a stop sign, everyone stops, everyone's coming, and we don't have to worry about that. And then the other question was about 2013. Yeah, since we had that direction, we didn't count again because we know it meets. We know it's at the bottom of the list, and as you can see, we have 9 other intersections that would get it before.
Sure.
And we generally, one thing I didn't mention in the presentation is we generally do 1 signal per budget cycle. So, which
very
is
helpful.
every other year. So, it would take a really long time to get down to number 10. Is my point.
Okay, that's good to know. So, from your perspective, at least from when the council provided direction in 2001 and then this latest date in 2013, I don't think they have, but have the traffic conditions changed at all in that period from when that direction was provided? Are they the same now as they were 10 years ago?
Yeah, good evening. The conditions have only changed because we modified the striping to the south of Kimber. So then, based on the warrants that he was showing you, because of lane configurations, it would modify the number or volume, which would actually make it easier to qualify. So it'd still be qualified for a signal.
Perfect, thank you. My last question on this, I completely understand. I used to live in the area. That's a 3-way stop. There are actually residents that have driveways that it almost looks like they go right into that intersection. I can see that, there's a very steep downhill climb coming right into that intersection, and I can imagine that if it were green, that you'd have a pretty consistent excess speed possibly coming through that intersection, which would cause residents concerns. Which makes complete sense if you had to weigh free flow of traffic versus speeding. To when there's free flow of traffic, that's where the council provided some balance of saying let's stick with the current conditions. Are there technology changes that have occurred in traffic lights that could allow for, in conditions where there is not a lot of waiting of the traffic to maybe coming off of Kimber onto Wendy, that it stays as a flashing red, which is effectively the same conditions now? It would be a stop sign. But if there were enough volume to allow for free flow of traffic, and then there would be reds on Wendy, that would help with any of the traffic conditions. I just don't know, because when those, one, is that a viable means of being able to control the traffic and deal with the stop, the traffic, the free flow through Wendy, and does technology enable that to be a little bit better than it might have been 20 years ago?
Thank you, Commissioner Ferris. Yes, they do have technology to have a signal where you rest on red. So if everyone came to the signal, it's red all the way around. And once the detection zone, once it was alerted there's a car there, then it would trigger to green. But the thing is, like we went over the overview, $450,000 for essentially a stop sign. So I don't think that would benefit the public. There wouldn't be any changes, is my point. It's already effective. It's effectively that.
No, not to make it a $450,000 three-way stop sign. I mean, that's I would agree that would not be, but could there be conditions to where the traffic light would through sensors know that there could be free flow of traffic from Kimber onto Wendy? That would be the only benefit of having a traffic sign or traffic light there. If it is the purpose of the traffic light is only to allow for free flow of traffic through the Wendy part of the intersection, and the concern is speeding, then maybe the discussion is moot. But is there any other benefits from Kimber traffic entering into Wendy?
Well, that is essentially how about 80% of our signals work now. Most of them are running free, so the main road would stay green, and then the side street, once it gets its green, would be able to stay free flow until that volume is, there's no more volume, or the maximum amount of time has been achieved. So in a signal, there are two different timers essentially going off, a minimum amount of time and a maximum. And so as long as the sensor is detecting cars, it continues that flow of traffic, in this case, on Kimber, and then would go back to a green ball on Wendy and would rest in green there. So that's kind of how most of the signals work in town.
No, I understand, and that's the reason why I was asking is technology, because this would not be something you would just put one of the regular ones on, because if it would be green on Wendy, it creates the speeding concerns, right?
Correct.
So instead of it being green, could it go back to flashing red? Which basically everything on Wendy, they're going to stop, but it goes full red when there's enough free flow of traffic on Kimber to allow that to flow. Once that's done, you go back to flashing red.
Theoretically, you may be able to do that, but that could be very confusing as to why it's different than 99% of all the
Possibly.
rest of the car.
But that's the reason I'm
signals.
asking, and I
But
just
yeah.
want to know, is it possible? And potentially, is it worth study? I mean, it would hit the top of the list if it were not for the speeding concerns. And that is a unique intersection. It's a three-way stop off the bottom of a hill. But
It is, but we'd have to probably research more of that particular style and function and make sure there isn't any other unintended consequences that could come
okay.
with that style.
I think that's all I just wanted to get an understanding of. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions from commissioners for the staff? We have Commissioner Hayek.
Just a question. Do we ever monitor where we've put in lights to see if there's any diminished traffic or, as new streets come in or different traffic patterns evolve or developments? Do we ever look at lights that are already there and possibly look at maybe removing something?
Not typically, not unless it's been directed, because that's something that could be, I'm not sure from a liability standpoint, but if we put something in for a reason, we probably should have a pretty good reason to reverse that.
Okay. And on the cost that we were quoted, $50,000 design and $400 to $450, is all that done outsourced, or do we do any of that in-house? Do we do the design in-house or any of the construction?
Yeah, we haven't designed too many in-house. We've done a couple, but primarily they're outsourced, and a lot of them have been done by developers, so they have been the ones to design them, or we go out for design ourselves with other agencies.
Okay. And then based on this list of the 1 through 10, now in the commentary in the write-up, that it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a light there. So what we're looking at here, are we saying that there's going to be a light at Plantus and Arbalest?
No, we're saying that if council gave us the budget and gave us $450,000 and said where would the next signal be, we would pull up this list and refer to it, and then it would be. But it would have to be planned and budgeted for. It's not currently happening.
Okay. So there's no new lights budgeted in this year's city budget?
There is one that's happening at Lawrence and Teller.
Okay. And that's the only one for this year. Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go out for design for Sunset and Herbs. That's the next one up. But it hasn't been built, but it has been budgeted for, and we're in the process of going out for design. Yeah, in 2016, it was the top ranked one. And just for a matter of fact, so was, let's see, number 6 was Plantis and Arbalest, and it was ranked number 6, but because we had a design change to the striping out there to one lane, it was able to bump up to number 1. That's why it's now number 1, because there's only one lane, east and west on Arbalest. So that's why we look at these every couple of years, because conditions can change and have changed.
So under the old striping pattern, it was less of a priority, and after we striped it, it became more of a priority?
Correct.
Right.
Commissioner Pletcher, you have a question?
Yeah, just a few questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, thank you for the report. I thought it was the most, for those of playing along at home, is probably the most easily digestible way to explain lights and why we do the way things that we do at the city. So I want to thank you for that. I mean, it's not an easy task to, get that information out there for the public to digest it, and I thought you did a tremendous job. Can you just give me you mentioned that we have 11 traffic signal warrants. The city utilizes the 4 most commonly used. Is there any circumstances that would go into considering the other 7?
Yeah, any of them can be looked at any time, but these 4 are more of the kind of the apples to apples. So majority of the requests come in from residential areas wanting to get onto a major street. So those are the ones that are more easily to understand. A couple of them we don't even really look at because they wouldn't really meet. For instance, the at-grade crossing is for railroads. We don't have that, so there's not really a need to look at that one. And some of the other warrants aren't really needed. But if it can meet, then we certainly do look at them. But generally speaking, as a general rule, the other conditions aren't met or they're too difficult to meet.
Okay. Just a minute. I apologize. And just as turning to your attachment to the table, kind of piggybacking off of the commissioner's question regarding Kimber and Wendy, has there been a desire or has staff taken that signal back, informational item, call it what it is, back to city council to kind of get further direction and consideration, considering it's been 21 years since really council's given that direction on what to do?
Not to this date, we have not.
Okay. I just was wondering, just in looking at the, just by ranking, just looking at the point total, I mean, it kind of holds that number 10 slot, but you look at the overall points and it would, but for that consideration, I would think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, get boosted up the list, wouldn't it, if you're ranking it via points?
It would, but, again, if they don't want it, there's not a lot of need to look at it. We do it just more of a data process just to know where it would rank, but that's why we have it at the bottom, because we don't want it to get construed with where it is. I mean, you can kind of see where it would fit within the numbers as to where it would fit. But if the residents came back and they had a strong desire to install a signal there, then we would certainly bring it back. But at this point, for the last probably 15, 20 years, I can't ever recall getting a call asking to put in a signal at that location.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to get kind of an understanding of what the process would be 21 years later, I guess, on that particular intersection. Just a quick final question. How important in determining signals would be from changes to a roadway or changes to, a school that revamp the way that they do their parking lot or a new development coming in? And obviously there's, it would tie into the overall development agreement, sure. But I guess piggybacking off of Commissioner Hayek's question in a way is those are, how are those changing circumstances considered when staff analyzes where to put signals?
Well, we generally look at any place that, or any citizen that calls up. If we haven't already looked at it, we'll look at it. If it's been requested, we'll look at it and do the analysis. And then from there, it gets put on to our, that's why Bradley was saying that we had 23 that we're monitoring, but only 10 have met. So if a development came in, they would look at it, generate their staff and run it through us. If it is a school district, a park district, county, there could be a number of other agencies or people within the community that could request a traffic signal.
Okay. And then just a final question. I think when citizens think of a traffic signal, they think it's, a cut and paste idea and $450,000 for construction, $50,000 for design. Can you just walk me through to that money? I mean, it's a complicated issue to get a signal and put it out there and design. And can you just walk through just super high level, brief, kind of what goes into the process when we pick an intersection to put a signal in?
You mean as far as the design and what goes into why that costs so much?
Just kind of why does it cost so much? Because I think I think the average citizen may get a little sticker shock in thinking that these are mass produced and can easily. Staff just goes out there and hangs it up, no problem. But that's not the reality of the situation.
Right, I understand, and I apologize for my voice. My voice is half gone, but
it's a good narrator. So, book on tape, maybe.
Yeah, so when I started about 30 years ago, actually 32 if you want to be technical, they were about $75,000 to build a signal. So just over the years, as anything else has gone up, so have signals you have from the design. You have a lot more materials. Back then, we did not have video detection. We did not have preemptors for ambulance, fire, police. The conduit has gotten more expensive. The poles themselves have gone up significantly. Some of the designs, so if you go over to the newest one over at Arbalest and Kensington, those poles are about almost literally twice the size as the size of a pole built in 2010. Therefore, the materials are bigger. The foundation is substantially bigger. That used to be basically a 3x8 hole for that foundation is now about 4 feet by 15 feet. So when a vehicle hits it, that's why they don't move. They've just have gone up. Labor costs, the amount of wire, of the copper wire that goes into it. So just you add up all those materials, and over 30 years, they're $400,000.
Okay. No, that's exactly what I was looking for. Just kind of getting an idea of technology improvements and something that I think we've all discussed up here previous. So you're just saying when you're driving, don't have a accident and hit a pole. That just doesn't sound.
That would be
expensive.
Advisable, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have one final question about the collision warrant. I think that the slides that depicted the correctable collision versus the uncorrectable collision were really helpful. If I understand correctly, a correctable collision is one which, if that had been a controlled intersection, that type of collision would not have been likely. Is that correct?
So both of those correctable collision types are like there's a right-of-way issue there. The person didn't know who was up, essentially. So yes, exactly. If the signal was there, it wouldn't have happened because somebody would have had a protected left and someone would have had a green ball, or one direction has red and one direction has green. You know what I mean? For a right angle collision.
Sure. So the traffic signal would have likely eliminated confusion regarding right-of-way.
Correct, but there are other factors, like if speeding, if the primary collision factor was unsafe speed or speeding, the signal wouldn't necessarily help for that.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is why I think you showed a slide with a car going off the road at a bend in the road, which obviously a traffic signal isn't going to help much with that.
Correct.
One final question. When it comes to the collision warrant, my understanding is that you look at the total number of correctable collisions within a continuous 12-month period over a 36-month term. And I'm assuming that what you're doing is you're looking at you're taking the highest number of correctable accidents within a continuous 12-month period within that 3-year larger period. Is that right?
Absolutely. So if it was from June to the next June or April to April, those continuous 12 months, those are the ones I'm using.
So it wouldn't be like staff would look at a continuous 12-month period with no correctable collisions and conveniently select that 12-month continuous period as the one that you would apply in the analysis.
Correct, right.
Okay.
We wouldn't do that.
Well, at this point, Madam Secretary, do we have any speakers on this engineer's report?
No individuals have requested to speak on this item, and for the record, 0 written statements have been submitted.
Thank you. Do we need, or is there a desire for any further discussion among the commissioners? Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Hayek.
To the earlier point mentioned about introducing other warrants, so when do they come into play? Is it at the requester's request? Like, let's say for a school zone or a school crossing.
Sure. Like I said before, any citizen entity can request, and we can look at that. And if it meets one of the other warrants based on its locations, because each location can be different in and of itself. Obviously, something on Thousand Oaks Boulevard would be different than Moore Park. That would be different from Wendy. So we look at each one of those individually, and based on the request, we'll look at it and see if it meets generally these 4 warrants. And if there is some other outside condition that would meet one of the other warrants, then we would certainly look at it. So for an example, let's say up on Rancho Canal where Amazon went in, if you had an extreme amount of cars coming out at one time, it could meet one of the other warrants. But at this time and point, that's not the case. But we would certainly look at any of those other warrants, provided it's acceptable to do so.
So then in a case where a new traffic pattern is installed on a property, is there a waiting period before doing the study or counting the traffic? Like a new entrance or exit?
Yeah, I mean, we do counts during school times. We don't do it during the summer, so we wouldn't go out and do counts then. And we also don't during the holiday months of Thanksgiving to January 1. So we have a kind of a small window to do the counts. But if we have that request, we would do that at an appropriate time to count a location that has changed. Again, for instance, at Arbalest and Plantis, the lane configuration changed, and over the course of a couple of years, we knew that was on our list, and so we do our counts, like we were saying, maybe in 2024 again, and we would reprioritize those. So if those come in, or other requests, we would look at those requests over the next couple of years, and then reassess based on what has come in at any given location throughout the city.
I don't. Maybe I'm not understanding. My question was, if an entrance and exit, let's say in a school or a shopping center, whatever, didn't exist before but now exists, does that traffic study, can it be requested as soon as that entrance exit goes live, or is there like a wait period to kind of wait and see? Is it just at the requester?
Wanted to check the mic. Yes. Hi, Commissioner Hayek.
You know what I mean?
Not our city engineer. In those cases, when you're talking about private on-site modifications or developments, those are typically analyzed during that design process or during the entitlement process in most cases when there's modification going on, so that any changes that are needed can be folded into the project and not trail behind. Typically, we wouldn't have a shopping center open and then monitor it for a couple of years and then do something about it after the fact. And it would be the opposite. The shopping center would be conditioned to install the traffic signal as part of their project design, and it would be a part of their entitlement, so that the signal is operational once the center comes online. So that's typically how those are handled. They're evaluated. The applicant reimburses or pays for a traffic study to be done, which will then indicate what patterns are going to change and what the new volumes are going to be and what the new requirements might be. And then based on that traffic study, that should identify the warrants, which may or may not require the signal to be built, and then we would work with them in that design and construction of the signal. But for the most part, that construction, because it's being prompted or generated, or that new volume is being created from that new on-site development, that would be the developer would construct it, as Robert mentioned earlier. A good portion of our traffic signal, half of them or so, or roughly, were probably built by developers over the years.
So in that case, the entrance, exit, or that traffic flow doesn't exist yet. So are estimates used? That's
correct.
I guess that's my
Yes.
question, right?
Right.
So we're estimating
The
based
traffic
on
study, yeah.
number of stores, square footage, expected customer count, like that, and then
Right.
we would use those estimates with the major thoroughfare data, right? Is
Yes.
that what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have now arrived at a point where we have no public speakers. The public comment time is come and gone. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. We have no further questions for staff. Since this is an action item, I don't believe that we need a motion to receive the report. Is that correct?
This was just an educational item.
See, and so, there's nothing like an educational item like traffic signals to light a room on fire. So this will teach you a lesson next time. Don't bring this. We don't need a motion, no vote required, right? We have received the report, we've given you our input, and so we are now free to move on to item 6B, right? Okay. So moving on now, we have a second engineer's report from Transportation Planner Kathy Naum.
Thank you, Chair Amell. The item before you is a status report on the city's active transportation program grant applications submitted to the state for 2 projects. The projects focus on pedestrian bicycle improvements for a segment of Lynn Road and a segment on Hillcrest Drive. The call for projects was sent out by Caltrans in March. The amount of available funding has increased over the years, and this year there is $650 million available statewide. The goals of the Active Transportation Program, or the ATP, includes increasing the number of trips made by pedestrians and cyclists. In the past, the city was awarded several ATP grants, including one to construct sidewalks on Los Feliz Drive. We were also awarded an ATP grant to construct bike lanes, sidewalk, radar feedback signs, and a pedestrian crossing on Willow Lane. The same ATP grant provided funding to construct bike lanes and sidewalks on Canary School Road. City staff submitted 2 ATP grant applications this year. Application number 1 was for Lynn Road bike lanes and pedestrian improvements and application number 2 was for Hillcrest Drive, bike lanes, and pedestrian improvements. Both projects are identified in the city's adopted 2019 Active Transportation Plan. The Lynn Road Bike Lanes and Pedestrian Improvement Project is also identified in the city's adopted 2021 Local Road Safety Plan. Both the Active Transportation Plan and the Local Road Safety Plan serve as a blueprint for the city and identify target areas for infrastructure improvements that would benefit all road users, specifically pedestrians and bicyclists. The Lynn Road Bike Lanes and Pedestrian Improvement Project spans 4.5-mile segment of Lynn Road between Gainsborough Road and Wendy Drive. That's shown in blue on the map. This is a newly paved section of Lynn Road, south of the 101 freeway out to Wendy Drive. It's striped with a Class 2 buffered bike lane in both directions. This new buffered zone was added between the travel lanes and the bike lane on this segment as part of the city's summer pavement project. The buffer zone creates more separation between cyclists and automobiles, and in addition to buffer being added, the width of the travel lanes were reduced, which should help to calm traffic on Lynn Road. In the northbound direction, north of the 101 between Hillcrest and Gainsborough Road, Lynn Road is striped with a buffered Class 2 bike lane. And in the southbound direction, Lynn Road is striped with a standard Class 2 bike lane, but there's no buffer. The Lynn Road Bridge over the 101 has no bike lanes. This is a view traveling northbound over the 101 towards the Oaks Mall. Traveling northbound, there are 3 through lanes and a left turn lane. There's also a sidewalk and a safety fence. Caltrans includes fencing on bridges where there are sidewalks. This is a picture of Lynn Road as you approach the bridge traveling southbound. Next to the median is the number 1 lane, which is the through lane. The number 2 lane in the middle is a shared through and right turn lane, and the number 3 lane on the right is a right turn only lane. When a cyclist is crossing the bridge, they use the middle lane and must negotiate vehicles turning onto the freeway. Continuing the same direction, this is the southbound view of the Lynn Road Bridge where there are 2 travel lanes. There are no bike lanes or safety fencing. Because there's no fence, a cyclist feels they could be pushed off the bridge and onto the 101 if a car starts to veer to the right. For that reason, a cyclist will ride in the center of the number 2 lane instead of off to the right of the travel lane. The 6 main elements of the project include striping Class 4 bike lanes, which will require reducing the number of lanes on the bridge from 3 to 2, installing a bicycle signal phase at the northbound on-ramp, installing new safety fencing on the west side of the bridge and replace the existing fencing on the east side, installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons with advanced warning beacons on the southbound ramps, and new pedestrian lighting on the bridge adjacent to the existing sidewalk. Here are a few examples of what a Class 4 bike lane looks like. The photo on the right is what has been installed around Los Angeles. The photos on the left are from New York City and Seville, Spain. The main difference between a Class 2 buffered bike lane and a Class 4 bike lane is the installation of a vertical device that separates the bike lane from vehicle traffic. The total estimated cost of the project is $3.352 million. The grant request is about 78% of the total cost of the $2.6 million, total cost or $2.6 million, which will cover the cost of construction. City staff will request the city contribution of $750,000 be included as part of the upcoming budget process. The city's contribution will cover the cost of the environmental review and the project design. The second project is the Hillcrest Drive Bike Lanes and Pedestrian Improvement Project, which is located on Hillcrest Drive between Lynn Road and Moore Park Road, adjacent to the Oaks and the Jans Malls. The limits of the new bike lanes are Lynn Road to Hillcrest. Lynn Road to Hillcrest. I'm not saying that right. The limits of the new bike lanes are Lynn Road to Moore Park. Most of Hillcrest Drive from Camino dos Rios to Westlake Boulevard is striped with a standard Class 2 bike lane, except for the project limits, and a few short segments east of Moore Park Road and east of Herbs Road. The limits of the sidewalk project are between Lynn Road and McLeod Avenue. Between Moore Park Road and Lynn Road, Hillcrest Drive is currently striped with 2 to 3 travel lanes in each direction, a raised center median, and the posted speed limit is 45 miles per hour. The missing bike lanes within the project limits make it challenging for bicyclists to ride between the east and west ends of the city. This is the section adjacent to the Jans Mall. This is the section adjacent to the Oaks Mall going in the westbound direction. A sidewalk exists on both sides of Hillcrest Drive except for the segment between Lynn Road and McLeod. There is a sidewalk on the south side within the project limits. Because Hillcrest Drive has neither a bike lane or a shoulder, pedestrians cannot, and they should not, walk on the street in this section. This is another photo of the missing sidewalk area west of the west driveway, across from the mall. Currently, Hillcrest Drive is striped with 3 lanes in each direction. The new Class 4 bike lanes would be constructed in the number 3 lanes in both the east and westbound directions. The project elements include reducing the number of lanes from 3 to 2 and installing a Class 4 bike lane, installing a sidewalk between Lynn and McLeod Avenue, and installing new ADA ramps, a slough wall, new curb and gutter, a retaining wall, and removing 16 eucalyptus trees. The total estimated cost for the project is $2.84 million. The grant request is about 79% of the total cost, or $2.25 million, which will cover the cost of construction. City staff will request the city contribution of $490,000 be included as part of the upcoming budget process. The city's contribution will cover the cost of the environmental review and project design. The call for projects went out in March. Public outreach was conducted in April at the city's Arbor Earth Day celebration and the Rams Trophy Tour event. The applications were submitted in June, and we hope to hear back in October and November that we have been awarded the grant for either or both projects. A status report will be brought back to the Traffic Commission this winter. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Naum, thank you very much for the comprehensive report. Does the commission have any questions of staff regarding this report? Commissioner Pletcher's got a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Couple questions on the. I realize it's a really early question because design and everything's so far down the line. But in terms of, to use you set the world on fire when word got out that possible Class 4 bike lanes may be coming to the city of Thousand Oaks. I'm just curious, is there any thought this early on given to what those vertical devices may look like in terms of how that lane would be set out? Because I realize there's a million different ways you can, implement vertical devices. Is there any thought gone in quite yet, or?
Yes, we've given it quite a bit of thought because you have to provide a cost estimate in the grant application. And so depending on which device we want to go with, it has to be included in the grant application. And so like the least expensive one are the delineators that are plastic delineators. To the most expensive ones, or something we wouldn't consider, would be large planters that would require watering, and there'd be a big concrete planter. So we're looking at on the lower end, probably delineators, but also possibly some raised curbs, so it breaks up that whole view of the delineators. We're talking to other agencies. If anyone knows the 6th Street Bridge, just put a Class 4 in, and those are raised curbs with some delineators. So it's all brand new. But yeah, we're giving it some thought, and so when it goes to the design, it'll really have to do with the budget, how much money we get as a grant, and then if it's not within the grant budget, then we'd have to ask the council to appropriate the funds for it.
That's amazing. I'm very happy to hear that we're going after these grants for these 2 projects. Just one final question, and this just comes from some of the work I've done in the past, but regarding the missing sidewalk between Lynn and McLeod, are we going to have to do we already own that piece of land? We do?
Yes, it's
wonderful.
all within the city's right of way.
Okay, good. Because I've done those acquisitions before, and they're not fun. Well, good. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I have one. Oh, okay, you're asking for a question? Okay, so this is an information item. I'm allowed to ask a dumb question.
Educational item.
Yeah,
but
educational
yes.
item. So you were talking about a class 2
Mhm.
bike lane, and then a class 2 buffered bike lane, and then it went to class 4. Is there such thing as a class 3?
Yes. So I'll explain there's 4 classes. Class 1 is a completely off-street bike path, similar to the Canary Creek South bike path that's by the school district office. Class 2 is it's just striping and signage. So you can have a stripe that says bike lane or a buffer, but it's all flat. It's just paint. Class 3 are just signs. They say bike route. They're usually good if somebody's riding and they know that if they turn on a street, they're not going to hit a cul-de-sac. So bike routes get you through neighborhoods, but usually class 2s are more high volume streets. So you put the class 2, the stripe bike lanes, class 3s, not putting the paint out there. And then the class 4, the big difference is the vertical delineation. So what we have on Lynn Road, which has been currently striped with the summer pavement program, is a 2 because it's a bike lane with the buffer. There's no vertical delineation, but the class 4 adds the vertical. But yeah, it's funny because they added the class 4 in the last couple of years, so they only had 1, 2, 3. They couldn't do like 2.5, but that's what class 4 is. It should be bumped up higher than the class 3, but that's how they numbered them.
Does the city have class 4 bike lanes anywhere else in the city?
Or just a little baby one going in on Rancho Road between Thousand Oaks Boulevard and the 101. It's the new project that's going in, and there's it's right at the northbound ramp as you pass Taco Bell, you could say. It's almost, the signal's going to be modified and it should be finished up soon, but that's right now our only class 4.
Okay. Is there any reason why the stretch of roadway on Hillcrest there between McLeod and Lynn is designated for a class 4? Is there something special or particular about that stretch of roadway that requires the highest level of?
Well, what it is, because there's 3 lanes in each direction, by reducing the number of lanes to 2 lanes, we have the width of an entire lane. So we have 11 feet. So to look at it and say, okay, we could do just a class 2 with a buffer, but while we're out there, why don't we make it even safer? The volumes are there, the speeds are there, it has a curve in the road. It'll just, anything to make a cyclist feel safer out there and get a different range of ages and abilities to cycle. That's the goal. It's called 8 to 80. You want to design everything for an 8-year-old to an 80-year-old. So, oh yeah. Plus, hopefully, it's more competitive.
It's a good reason. Yeah. Madam Secretary, do we have any speakers on this report?
No individuals have requested to speak on this item, and no written statements have been submitted.
Okay, then we will close. Yeah, close the public comment section here, and then if there are any remaining items for discussion on behalf of the commission, we can do that now.
I have one more.
Question for staff?
Yeah, one more question.
Oh, okay, Commissioner Pletcher.
Discussion. Just as a quick follow-up, is there anything that the public can do? Is the city staff looking for any engagement, feedback, thoughts, comments about what's proposed in the grant program? I mean, how can, softball question here, how can our bike community get more involved in providing any feedback or help to staff on this? I know there's a lot of people excited out there, and I want to possibly help channel that towards positive feedback staff can use.
So what's interesting is that this application process is over because we already submitted it. There's 2 applications that are currently open: the HSIP, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and also CMAQ, Congestion Management Air Quality. I'm submitting grant applications for both of those grants because if we don't get these, we still need money to build them. So anytime anyone out the community wants to contact me or the city or tweet or Facebook, anything on social media that supports cycling, I can use that as part of my grant application. So
perfect. That was what I was hoping for. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging me one more time.
Okay. Any further questions, Commissioner Pletcher? Sorry, Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you.
So sorry.
So thank you. You were asking for more questions, so I figured I'd indulge. I mean, a couple things I just wanted to know a little bit more about. So, correct me if my memory is maybe incorrect here. I feel like, did we have a previous hearing in which the Traffic Commission entertained the reduction of striping lanes on Hillcrest? Because we sort of evaluated, we did not think the traffic flow was what was needed for 3 lanes, and that we did have a recommendation for that. And has that fed into the ability to provide this these bike lanes?
So as part of the original pavement program, this part of Hillcrest was in the pavement program, but it was removed. So we did all this public outreach for reducing it from 3 to 2 lanes. And even back then, we weren't talking about doing a class 4. We were doing a buffered bike lane. And since it wasn't part of this year's pavement program, we now can do a grant application for it. Again, so in 2 years, let's say we don't get any funding, the pavement program's still going to go forward. We'll probably put in a buffered bike lane, reduce the lanes, and then because that's all no extra cost. It's just putting the delineators in that'll be a cost that we'll have to ask the council to appropriate funding. But yes, you have a very good memory. You saw this
Okay,
before.
I just was it looked very familiar, and I couldn't remember. But that's I'm glad that it's consistent with kind of the alignment of changing traffic conditions, but also supporting the cycling within.
Right,
within
and that
the
was
city.
all part of the grant. We did so much outreach to a year and a half ago. You know, we had Zoom meetings, and there was changeable message signs, and we're out telling everyone we were going to have these meetings, and people participate. We had online surveys, we did mailings to the adjacent property owners. So we have all this data that supports reducing the number of lanes. But then when that part of the payment project didn't go forward.
Okay. And then the second part was you were describing sort of, if I remember right, it's the southbound Lynn intersection, one in which we don't really have any bike lanes. And you're saying that like the cyclists need to kind of like navigate the center lane to cross traffic as people are trying to make the right turn onto the 101. And I guess I'm trying to understand just in my head like how the bike lane would help cyclists, but is there
Right, so the preliminary
how's it gonna
design,
work, I guess?
and it's part of the local road safety plan that was done in 2021. So if you picture, as you're going southbound, there's sprouts on the right. So the bike lane, there's currently an equestrian path that goes to nowhere. There's this dirt path. That would become a class 4. So the cyclist would come up on the equestrian path that would be paved. There would be a bicycle signal that they would push, and it would hold the free rights onto the freeway. And so that's the main conflict point, trying not to negotiate those. And as you're well aware, as people who turn right on the freeway start to accelerate, so that's always really sketchy. So that signal is part of the design, and then when they cross over, then there's a class 4. If I know in the picture, there's 2 lanes, but 1 lane is really wide. So there'll be a class 4 on that side, and that's how they'll get across the freeway.
Great. So the cyclists will have the ability to control the intersection for their passing over over this on-ramp item, and then have a class 4 protected
to get
lane to get over the overpass.
Right, with a fence.
The fence, yep. Perfect. That's how I wasn't quite able to visualize it, but thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and if I might add, that's how the Rancho Road project that she was alluding to earlier has been designed. There's going to be a separate signalization for the bicycle if they depress that so that they have their own green, and it holds the free right going northbound temporarily while the bicycle clears.
That's really great. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for staff on this report? Okay, I see none. Ms. Naum, thank you very much for your report. Moving on now to item 7, we have the status report regarding prior traffic commission recommendations. Is that a status report that's provided by staff?
Yeah, there's no verbal report. We just listed 3 items under item 7, just to let you know that what we talked about at the last commission meeting for the the crossing guard program, the speed hump policy, and the stop sign proposals. They were all heard on June the 14th. The only item that did not pass was the crossing guard program, and that's going to be looked at again on August 30th this year. And I provided, in terms of the speed hump policy, a copy of the final policy. It was given a number, resolution 2009, 2022-25. And there's a hard copy before you.
Which we've received, and thank you for that. And thank you for the status report as well. Moving on to item number 8, commission referrals from April 20th, 2022. We have none. Item number 8, work program and commission schedule. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff on that subject? Nothing? Okay, we've now reached agenda item number 10, traffic commission comments. Anything? We have nothing. And I guess we're ready to adjourn this meeting. So we will now adjourn the July 20th, 2022 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission. The next meeting to be held at 6 p.m. on September 21, 2022 in the boardroom of the Civic Arts Plaza on the 3rd floor, since committees, commissions, and boards are dark during the month of August. Again, thank you very much. Much appreciated with the reports tonight. Thank you.